Go, Niantic, is being sold to the Saudi Foreign Wealth Fund for actually, it's being sold to a gaming company owned by the Saudi Foreign Wealth Fund for $3.5 billion. What are your thoughts on that, gentlemen?
The sports washing continues.
The sport of
Just
Pokemon
buying
Go.
the next major esport. Dude, I think it's so funny. My first reaction was, why? Because is Pokemon Go, is it just really successful and profitable? And
I heard it makes good money. Here's also, I got a little background. So Saudi Royal Wealth Fund, they buy everything. You guys, I mean, they've spent money on sports teams, on everything, esport, everything. They've done tons of purchases.
So is this like, real quick, is this like a government entity that buys all this stuff?
Yes.
And it's, okay, so it's public, or not public, but it's government owned.
Yeah, it's essentially government. It's public money. It's like they have this extra money from oil.
I mean, they bought ESL, the company I used to work for.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, and I don't really know what's going on there. I just know all my friends who work in esports are now like, yeah, I got this offer to go work in Qatar for the World Series. I'm like, okay, that's cool. But it's all in the Middle East now.
So that's the idea.
They're making moves, dude. They bought ESL. They killed Jamal Khashoggi. They fucking keep it real over there.
They shot him and they walked away and they said, just good business.
That's what
They have all this extra oil money and they want to invest it in things that are like future buzzwords, basically, whether it's EVs, whether it's esports, whatever. They want to have flashy, cool things that are, so when the oil money runs out, they've got all this business. That's the idea. And so they've been buying gaming companies is one thing. They bought the company that made Monopoly Go, and it turns out that made a mint. I don't know if you guys know Monopoly Go. It's not like Monopoly at all. It just looks like Monopoly, but it's like the greatest money extractor game of all time. Like it's got all the loot boxes and puzzles and everything, and they've been printing. That game is like one of the most profitable games ever.
Yeah, I worked in mobile games at EA, which is a beloved category.
Mobile games.
Oh, careful, he's a hero.
Yeah. So as the resident Elon Musk fan, I worked at EA on mobile games.
Dude, I'm so glad you're on this pod, dude. You're like the Winston in Overwatch for the comments.
Yeah. I'll take all of it. I literally was there when it was voted worst company in America. All right, and in the article for that they said it's mostly because of Doug. The guy sucks.
That one guy.
Yeah, no, not a joke. And obviously I left. But so like mid-range. This is a decade ago. Mid-range mobile games make like $1 million a day. If you're talking like,
isn't it crazy?
That's mid-range. If you're talking about Clash of Clans, you're talking about tens of millions.
And that's day?
And then that's when they do a big drop. Like for example, Fortnite, you can make 50 to 150 million on a new skin.
Yeah.
Like when Fortnite was at its peak. So the numbers that you can get off microtransactions in mobile games are genuinely obscene.
And they cost a little to make.
Should
you know what I'm saying?
Buying digital items in video games.
You own so many CSGO knives. It's crazy. Your grandchildren will starve. You're a rich podcaster, and your grandchildren will starve because of your
grandchildren
investment.
Can sell them to the Saudis.
Look at it. Look at the butterfly knife. It spins. It's blue.
It's pretty blue. It's almost fully blue.
I'm with Aiden on this.
I did not real. I mean, I understood that mobile gaming in general is like the biggest chunk of the gaming market, revenue wise. That is still wild to hear.
Yeah.
I think the idea of, I was thinking earlier about when you first brought up the topic of people like the line in Saudi Arabia finally gets built, and you're playing Pokemon Go in the line. And it's just you and your friends walking down one fucking long hallway catching Pokemon. You never turn left or right.
You guys don't know the line is a 5.
Because then if somebody's like, oh, guys, there's a Charizard, and it's at the end of the line. Like, there's only one.
We got to go all the way to
You got to go to the other end of the line.
500 miles.
It's
great shot.
It's just, I think the passing headline makes you think, is my initial reaction is like, why would you do this? But there's a larger cohesive strategy, surely, around this amount of money being spent.
Is it?
That's what I'd like to think.
I can wildly speculate.
I think sometimes it feels like, the rate at which my familiarity with esports in particular makes me feel a little doubtful of like my own take, in the sense that it feels like they've overpaid for a lot of things. Like you don't have to bring this level of spending to esports.
It is highly irrational, yes.
Get a lot of the hold that they wanted in the industry. And to a degree, I can it feels like flexing on like a geopolitical scale.
Yeah, it does feel like flexing. It feels like, is this worth $3.5 billion? Pokemon goes down from its peak. the people that are using it said if they change microtransactions, I'm gone. Now, people always say that, you don't know, but like if they try to make it,
Pokemon fans are not leaving. I'm sorry. Like, no, they've been abused for decades. They're not
keep on.
They're not going to go away. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it'll mean, but there's definitely a lot of pushback and like anger and fear from the community of like
from the Pokemon Go community.
The Pokemon Go community, because they don't want to change anything. They want everything to be. They do it all the time. They've been doing it for years and years and years.
Yeah,
they're worried about change.
What they said in the article was that they're focusing basically on AI, and I need to look more into it. And we can do this in the future. One thing I'd want to talk about. Huh?
Speculate.
Pokemon Go AI?
Well, okay. I will speculate based on what I've read about AI gaming. So there's a push from some major companies, Microsoft being the biggest recently, who announced they have this new AI generative game that is trained on one of their games, and they're going to start using the Microsoft library to work on generative AI video games. I think this is incredibly far off in the future. I don't have a lot of faith that would I'm pretty pro AI, and I have a very, very hard time seeing any of that ever manifesting in a way that people want to play or buy at all. But that is at least an explicit push. So in theory, what these guys are doing is saying, we're dropping the traditional video games. And they said this in the article, like they are focusing more on AI tech and AI games. So they're like, Pokemon Go, that's great. That's old news. That's human beings making things that other humans enjoy.
Yeah.
We're going to make a bunch of AI shitty game slop that nobody enjoys. If you believe that, that's what they think is the future, or at least, the big moonshot opportunity, and that's what they're going for.
I'm actually curious because in a weird change of pace on the Yard bonus episode this week, which you listen to on patreon.com/yard.
Are we feeling?
No.
Enron hats.
Yeah.
We talked about something a little more serious. We talked about vibe coding.
Yeah.
And the way people are
you
making...
four talked about vibe coding.
Three of us. Ludwig was gone.
3 non-coders talked about vibe coding.
Well,
Can you give me like a 1-sentence summary? I would love to hear what kind of breakthroughs you guys came to.
I don't know if...
What did Slime have to say about vibe coding? What did he...
I think it was actually a huge chunk of the episode. It would be unfair of me to characterize, to synthesize
you have to go
but
to the Patreon.
I want
to
to ask you what you guys think of it, because I had not heard of this until I think Nick brought it up, this idea of vibe coding where you use ChatGPT to spit out code that you don't know how to write, and you build a game like that. And then you just iterate on the game by using ChatGPT prompts. And apparently these games are starting, you could turn around a project in a relatively short period of time. And then people are launching these games on like mobile and then filling them with advertisements and then making money. And it's it's a trend. And I thought this was really interesting because my two reactions were, on one hand, I was like, oh man, this really like cheapens this art form and makes it, this feels a little like soulless. And then on the other hand, I was like, well, if you can provide a tool to people to create their ideas without being inhibited by being unable to learn how to code for whatever reason, what is good and bad about this? And that's basically what we talked about for like 20, 30 minutes.
That phone call just bumped us down to number 10.
Fuck.
Tucker's carving his way back in, brother.
It was Tucker, if you can believe it. He knew what he was doing.
So I was wanted because I feel like it's in the vein of this conversation of like something like AI just pumping out video games automatically. This is sort of similar to that. It's like still a prompt, still a human idea, but somebody sitting at a computer and making games in a very different way and potentially sacrificing some of what they have in their mind because they aren't able to meticulously edit and understand the code.
Yeah. Here, can I get the telestrator?
Yeah.
I want to draw. You can kick it off.
I mean, look, my answer to this is I'm not a coder, so I haven't tried vibe coding. I don't know the difference but here, my understanding is that the games that have been made so far are pretty slop. One of them I know it was like an MMO flying game. This guy, Pierre, made, I don't know, but he has a big audience.
Dude.
He made it. It made a lot of money. It was making like $100K a week or something. It was like printing money, and it was like I tried it. It was really sloppy, but it was like a kid could play. You're playing it, I'm playing it. So there could be potential there. Right now, as a gamer, I see such a drastic gulf between. I mean, it just has.
Yes.
There's so many issues and edge cases that come up that you don't get fixed that I think it's kind of crap. But
during this segment where we were recording, Zipper tried to make a game using ChatGPT, and he successfully made a tiny game where you control a profile picture of me that eats hamburgers, which were yellow dots, and every time you fed it a hamburger, the score went up by 1,000,000. And so within the span of us having the conversation, that was crafted.
Yes.
That's what they made Red Dead Redemption too. It's the same.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so vibe coding, this was coined recently by Andre Carpathy, actually, who's the leader of Tesla. And so basically it's what you're saying. It's just letting AI do all the coding. And that's been the slow transition that everybody's going through over the past 2 years since ChatGPT came out. So for people who are not programmers, every programmer now, asterisk, almost every single programmer is using AI extensively. And it's so unbelievably helpful for so many tasks. And that doesn't mean that the entire project is done by AI. It means that you are figuring out the outline, you're deciding what things to do, and then you say, okay, now that this is defined, AI, can you do this for me? So you are building the structure, you're thinking through what it is, but then you're directing the AI like you would a junior engineer at a software company, and you're saying, okay, now go through the logistics of making this work. And you still then, like a senior engineer, would review what they're doing. And because there's going to be problems, there's going to be lots of issues, you have to review things. It doesn't always work. But that's the idea, and it saves a lot of time. I do this all the time. With vibe coding, it's getting to a point now where you do not need to ever code or review code. So that ratio of like, oh, it's helping you as an assistant with all these things is becoming like 100% as opposed to, it's 50% of the code or something like that. So with regards to games specifically, I guess to summarize that, AI is getting good enough to do this now, and it's improving rapidly. Every few weeks, there's a new model which is even better at programming. So this is very much a thing that is happening. So I think that what Microsoft is largely arguing for is the idea that an AI itself is basically going to generate the game, right, that you are playing. So it's AIs directing AIs to make things, and a whole bunch of just AIs basically doing it all. And that's the thinking is, they can go release this into the wild, and then people are just playing these infinitely generated AI games. Vibe coding is more of a human who is then directing AIs, right? So with vibe coding, like you as a human, in the case that you were talking about, are still directing what the app or game is, right?
Yeah.
With Zipper's case, like he's deciding the design of the game. The AI isn't doing that.
But he wants me to eat the cheeseburger.
He wants you to eat the cheeseburger. And so this is where I think a lot of AI development is going to go, and why I'm generally optimistic about it. I think there's a lot of examples. Like I have people in my life, Point Crow and Failboat. I love them. Horrible at programming, just truly awful. And both of them have started to really add cool, sophisticated stuff into their streams that use programming because AI helps them do it. And so I think this case of like humans directing AIs to do their ideas, they are the creative director and the AI does the grunt work. That's where it's largely going to work. And if a guy comes up with a cool, weird mobile game that people are like, oh, this is dumb, this shouldn't be making that much. Well, that's what we thought about Flappy Bird, right?
Oh, I totally agree. I mean,
You
don't get to decide what's worth it or not. People just decide it by playing it. Like, whatever's fun, they'll play.
And this is obviously again a huge conversation, and we'll dive into it in the future. But the core distinction being like fully AI generated stuff where no human is involved versus you are a creative director and AI is a tool just like Photoshop or like OBS or like playing a video game, right? And you are directing what is happening.